Sarah. All day. Hell yeah.
Arm wrestling's about to take place.
Yeah.
That just went down, and that Jerry Cadorette versus Ermes Gasparini. You know, and we know that there was all this controversy with the whole lead up and everything, and Jerry, passports getting lost, car accidents, pneumonia. I mean, just every obstacle you could be thrown at somebody, it happened and all. But Jerry manned up. He went there anyways. He was saying he was under 70%, whatever. But he went in and pulled Ermes, and Ermes just, annihilated him. He just totally took him out of his track, never got in his track, complete control, complete ninja'd him. And the one thing I got to say, guys, all that factored in and everything, it definitely took a lot from Jerry, but I really truly believe Jerry could have been 100 times stronger, and I don't think it would have changed the outcome. What I think happened was that Ermes really did his homework, and he knew how to beat that style that day, and he completely ninja'd him. So I want to ask Bob on this, man. Do you agree with what I just said with that statement, that if Jerry was 100 times stronger, it wouldn't have changed the outcome?
No, actually, I don't.
Okay.
So there's something, I will say this. Ermes pulled him perfectly. When you're going against a guy who is what we think, and I'm going to say that, what we think is a flop wrist presser, if you come towards him just a little bit, you're going to top roll him, but you're going to come towards him to stop the flop wrist and then peel his whole arm out. If you have the strength to pull it off, it's the perfect way to arm wrestle that. Now, here's what I noticed during that match that really kind of surprised me. Jerry is not a flop wrist presser. When he false started, there was a couple times where Jerry false started. Now, if he was a flop wrist presser, after Jerry false started, he would have been in a flop wrist press position, if that's his move. Because he went first, he false started. But that's not what it was. When he false started, I'm going to back up a hair. He was in this position.
Going for a hook.
He was shoulder rolling. He is a shoulder roller trying to keep his wrist.
And it just gets taken.
And he ends up in that position.
Yes.
Where against Ermes, he should have backed his elbow up to the back of the pad as far as the ref would have allowed him, because, they still got to meet in the center. And he should have intentionally flop wrist pressed. I guarantee you the slip, you guarantee. I think the slip would have occurred then, because Jerry would have been backed up. Ermes would have had to come further across to stop the flop wrist, because he was trying to stop a flop wrist against the guy who wasn't actually flop wristing. If he'd have backed his elbow up, I think he would have gotten out. It would have ended up in the straps. And he should have done the same thing. Back his elbow up, force the wrist to get flopped. Now, Ermes because in that position with the wrist broke back, it's harder to finish someone who's just let their wrist go. Ermes may very well have had the strength to just do it, but I don't know.
Georgie didn't.
Exactly. Once he's in that position, he's a different human being, because taking someone down, if you've got the hand strength to just grab a man's hand, have him keep his wrist and put him down, that requires a certain amount of strength. But if that same person just lets his wrist go, remember when we were kids, we would just let our wrist go and people couldn't beat us as easy?
Yep.
It's the same thing. So if Jerry is able to just let his wrist go, all of a sudden finishing him becomes harder. Ermes may very well have still just smacked him right to the pad. He might have, but it could have been different.
He was using a different technique. So I've got to agree to disagree respectfully, of course, because when I spent some time with him in the morning on the table, at no point was he trying to come forward and come around in this sort of sense. He was just thumb. It was going straight over Jerry's thumb. So he wasn't trying to reach around him. So even if Jerry had backed up on that pad, he still would have just got twisted straight over. It was like just a straight over the top, smacked him straight down. So I think the pressure, there was a lot of back pressure in his setup. And then that allowed for that wrist movement to go over the top. So, and that's what I felt on that table with him. And he was like, this is what I'm going to do. It felt awful. Like he could have, like if he did that to me, there was nothing. If he pulled back, that would have been a much more comfortable pull for most people. But the way he'd been arm wrestling and the plan that he had for Jerry, I felt like if I tried to dig in, I would have snapped my arm. It was brutal what he was doing.
Is that what Travis Bajan did in 2016 against Jerry?
Very similar. Just high. Yeah.
So that's probably the footage that he learned to do that from. He went and looked at it. Yeah.
I mean, Devin did a full video on how to beat Jerry.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And when Travis has a little bit taller of an arm than Ermes, and in order to perform a flop wrist, it's easier to do it against someone with a taller arm. And Ermes does not have a taller arm. So it's difficult to do it against someone with a shorter arm.
He's wedged in and he's more compact.
Yeah. And then when you realize Jerry is not actually actively dumping his own wrist and coming forward, he's actually trying to sink a shoulder roll against someone like Ermes, who's just, whether Ermes is just collapsing or Ermes is turning slightly forward and just collapsing, it doesn't really matter. It's the perfect way to beat someone who is performing a shoulder roll, because you're going to turn their hand straight up and you're going to take them right down. So Ermes was doing it perfectly, I would just like to have seen Jerry actively just let his wrist go and then try to slip. I don't know if it would have worked or not. I'd still like to have seen it.
Do you think if Jerry was at 100%, not dealing with pneumonia, that could possibly change the outcome of that match?
Well, of course it could have possibly changed the outcome, whether it would or not. The whole travel problems, all those passport issues, I mean, I don't give any credence to that. That in my opinion, had no effect on the match itself.
He also flew business class, which helped.
Say that again?
He also flew business class, which certainly helps with any of that travel.
Yeah. See, I don't, to me, all that stuff is meaningless. Now, pneumonia, of course, that can affect things. But the best bench press record day I ever had, I did during the flu, while I had the flu. So I don't know what affects top end single rep max strength. Definitely will affect endurance, but I
don't think it affects that top end, because I hit my best bench press. I had COVID all week. I tested negative on the Saturday and hit a massive PR on Sunday. Endurance was awful, but my top end was still there.
Right. I totally agree with that. I think top end strength is not necessarily affected from illness, which may sound ridiculous, and maybe it does sound ridiculous, but in my personal experience, it doesn't. And apparently in Lachlan's, it doesn't either. So I don't know if it would have been.
Again, even on antibiotics, my top end is fine, but my endurance, absolutely goes to hell.
Is terrible. Yes.
One thing I gotta say, guys, is the stem cell doctor seen Jerry a week before, and he found out all the antibiotics that Jerry was on, and he contacted the owner of the stem cell company, my friend Robbie, and he just told him, he said, what he's on right now, he should not be competing. He's like, there's no way this guy should be going anywhere for a big match or
Right.
whatever. So that was, you know, also on his mind and all that. And then the big thing that Jerry had problem with that day was just the cadence, man. He couldn't get the cadence. He said he's been doing this ready goes for 34 years, never had it changed. And then they changed that day. So, you know, when he was doing those false starts, you know, he just couldn't get the timing right. And that could have been from the antibiotics too.
Yeah, no. And that, again, when he false started, that's when I noticed the hand position he was in after his false start. And I'm like, holy crap, he's actually trying to shoulder roll. He's not trying to flop wrist. And I was like, wow, he should really have, in my opinion, tried to just let his wrist go and dump underneath. Whether it would have worked or not.
I think that might have hurt him. I think it might have hurt.
It might have.
He might have tried that first round and he just got his shit ripped and been like, no,
exactly. I mean, I mean, we all speculate, and it's like woulda, shoulda, couldas, and you know, who knows?
This is what I want to know
really
from you guys is who would you guys want to see Jerry go against next? Come back and you know, make a comeback, or so to say, you know. Because the last couple appearances that we've seen, you know, they weren't top notch. You know, with Georgie, he was saying that he didn't get enough training. He was just coming off of the injury, so he didn't get to lift weight. And then he had pneumonia at this last one. So I'm not trying to make no excuses for him, but who would you want to see him pull and get back? You know,
Morozov.
That's funny. That's what I said, bro. You know, because both of them are coming off of both bad appearances where, you know, they had sicknesses and all. There you go. Tune up, and they're monsters for both of them.
Yeah.
I mean, they're both incredible monsters. And I think in that match, because Morozov's taller, it turns into the classic Jerry match. Morozov takes his hand and it turns into the flop rest classic match. You know,
now name two other guys. I want to throw three guys out there. You know, this way we got options here.
Well, my problem is I don't know names very well. The other name is the guy that just beat Morozov. That guy.
Well, Georgie, he just beat Georgie. Jerry went against Georgie in East vs. West 5, and Jerry beat him. So
is that the guy that?
Yes,
that's not who
Morozov.
Just beat.
Yep.
I thought it was like Artif or something.
Nope, Georgie Savetkov. We just did an interview yesterday on my channel.
See, that's why. Yeah. That's
Bob,
why
so you got to know this, man. Georgie is a big deal, man. Georgie is the WAF champion. You know what I mean? So a lot of the guys in East vs. West didn't know of Georgie and didn't know the level of arm wrestling. They had him all counted out against Artem Morozov. And I'm like, guys, I actually called it the week before. I said, bro, he's 380 pounds. That dude is a WAF champion. I think if Artem's not 100%, Georgie's going to get that win for sure.
Yeah, that's the problem. My memory's so bad. I don't really know all these other names and stuff. I mean, it's just the truth. I really just don't know them.